The policy underwriting process is one that's considered a structured process with exceptions. So the process begins when the application is received, and that'll be what kicks off the process. The goal of any application really is to ultimately issue a policy to the applicant or the group that's applying. There's several sections within this process. There's a combination of activities or tasks that need to be performed automatically, as well as some that are dependent on what happens within the process. When the application is received, it will go through the setup or registration, the processing steps, and all the necessary reviews before it goes to the underwriter. The underwriter is the case owner. The underwriter represents the person who is responsible for ensuring that this policy is either issued to the applicant or ultimately denied. So they have the key decisions throughout the process. And to help them out are a series of discretionary tasks that they can launch to help handle those exceptions. Since they don't know exactly how things will be able to be managed as it comes through, they need that flexibility to be able to launch activities or tasks for the people that they need to support them. And once they make their decision, if it is to issue the policy, it will continue on through the process. The key person in the underwriting process is our underwriter. This is represented by Maria. She will be managing and approving the application. But she doesn't do this alone. She needs support from several people in many different departments to be able to perform the other activities necessary to successfully underwrite this application and get it accepted ultimately by the applicant and generate new business for the company. So what we're going to do is walk through the entire policy underwriting process. We're going to start right from the beginning with the application. This is Mike. He's filled out his insurance application and has submitted it to the company for processing. So this is going to trigger the process. And the first step of this is going to be application intake. The application intake person is a task worker. They focus on performing a single task, selecting work from an in basket, where they can look at the work available, open that piece of work, and their job really is to review that application, to make sure we have a complete application, to make sure everything needed on that application has been pulled. They can look at all the properties and see that the information does get automatically pulled off that application that came in because that application that was filed has properties associated with it. So the information at indexing that was pulled off that application is available, and all that data was automatically pulled into this task to allow the intake review person to much more quickly review that application. If they need to, they have the ability to go ahead and open up the application document itself and perform a visual check of the application. They can look at all the pages within it. They can examine all the information that's been provided. And if there's anything that was missed and needed to be manually pulled off the application or any details that may need to be read, at this point in time, they're able to do that. So they can look at that full application, both from a data and a visual standpoint. At this point, if everything's set, they have the ability then to assign the underwriter who is going to be processing this item. So they go into the list of available underwriters, pick the underwriter that's going to be processing this application, and send it forward to the next step in the process. The processor is responsible for reviewing and making sure the entire package is complete, ready for the underwriter's review. The processor is what we consider a case worker. They work the entire application and all activities related to it once. They have the ability to look at cases with work, which means these are cases that have one or more tasks associated with them and would be contained within their in-basket. When they open it up, they're able to see the complete view of this application. We can see that the training and licensing is in process. We can see other information in a status bar to give us quick information about this application. That helps guide us to details around the application and this potential policy. The tasks that are running are broken into different areas. We can see the actionable tasks, which are tasks that we have the ability to work on, as well as other running tasks that are occurring. At this time, we can see that the agent review and OFAC review are also running at the same time. So what you have is actual true parallel processing of 3 different tasks by 3 different people within this one case. The processor can go in and do their reviews as they need to at the same time that the other people are completing their necessary work. This greatly increases the efficiency of the processing of this application. The processor will continue on in their work, taking a look at all of the information available, reviewing anything necessary that's in there. Meanwhile, at the same time, licensing is doing the agent review, where she will be looking at the agent licensing and training in order to be able to complete the sale of this product. They'll work often with other system of records where they're able to extend it with our system of enablement. They can see that that agent has actually passed their licensing, but has not yet completed their training review. So what she's going to do is mark the agent licensing review as passed and the training review as failed. This will provide key information later as people continue to process this application. Now that she's complete, she finishes her task. Also at the same time, the application intake specialist is going to look and do an OFAC review. This is where we'll do a FINRA check of the applicant and make sure there's nothing that would prevent us from issuing insurance to that person. We can do a full query, and we can see here that we're actually connecting directly to the government's FINRA site to do a real-time search on this applicant and see if there's any critical information that may cause them to pass this OFAC review or fail it. We can look at all of that information, collect the necessary data, and have the ability then to make that decision once everything's been gathered to say whether they have passed or failed. Rather than update a property, that property is updated by selecting passed or failed. So while that was going on, the processor was continuing to work, and the processor will quickly see in his status bar that training review has failed, but licensing has passed, and is able to look and see that all of the other tasks necessary are done, so this is ready to send forward to underwriting. So at this point, the processor completes his task and is ready to close this case. That decision will trigger the move into the underwriting portion of this process. The underwriter, who is actually the case owner, is responsible for the ultimate review of the case and making the determination if a policy will be able to be issued or not. So at this point, the underwriter is going to look in her in-basket and still has access to that case view. She views things at, again, that application level or the underwriting level. Because the underwriter is individually assigned ownership to the cases, she looks in the My Cases in-basket to select work. When she goes and opens up this policy, she's presented with a similar view that the processor had. The status bar at the top, the case information on the left, and the details in the middle, and can see information about this. The ability to very quickly look and see all the tasks that have run, what's happened, all the data related to this case, to see a complete collection of all the activities and actions that have occurred within this case. A full 360-degree view of the application as it came in. Now, she'll make the determination that medical information is required in order to approve this application for a policy. She's going to need some assistance from some other people to do this. So there's two things she's going to have to create. She's going to create a couple tasks. One, because training has failed, she's going to actually make a request to licensing to ensure that the training is completed. So she launches a task to go to the licensing specialist and asking that person to ensure that the training update is completed, as the agent needs to be fully trained to be able to sell this product. So she'll create that task, provide some instructions to the person that is going to be working on and completing this task, and go ahead and launch the task to be available for licensing. So now we have that task launched for licensing. We also need some assistance from the processor. We're going to create two tasks for the processor because there's two separate pieces of work that need to be done. The first thing is, based on this applicant and the information that is available, we're going to need some medical reports in order to be able to approve this policy. So we'll create a task for the processor to make sure that the medical documents are received and sent in. This will require the addition of new content to this application, and we'll launch this one task. In addition to the task that we're just launching now, we're going to want to create another task for the processor. Now, because it's important to have that training completed, we're also going to have the processor go ahead and send a reminder to the relationship person within the agency to ensure that all of their training is completed for this. The licensing person is responsible for ensuring that the training is complete, but the processor, in this case, owns that relationship with the agent. So you can see now there are three tasks that are running, the three that we launched, and we can go ahead and look and see that those instructions were added as comments for each of the tasks. So the person working it can very quickly see what they need to do. At this point, we're not able to continue working on this application. We will actually need to take the application and put it in a hold state. We're going to put it on the shelf, waiting for those tasks to complete and the document to arrive. So we're going to go ahead and place this on hold, which allows us to set the conditions under which we want that case to return. We'll set a deadline date for it, and we're going to specify the conditions we want. In this instance, we're going to have both task conditions and document conditions. So as we stated that we need that medical report, we're going to put this on hold and set a condition that we need a medical report to arrive, and also we need that licensing task to be completed. So this application will stay in a hold status until both of those conditions are met. So at this point, we're actually changing the status of this application based on the conditions specified. So we can see in our status bar, the status of this application is changed to on hold. Very quickly, that status bar becomes that go-to location to view. Like previously, two people can work on these tasks at the same time. Licensing is going to go ahead and she's going to work on that training and make sure that it gets completed. Meanwhile, the processor is going to continue his work as well to resolve the issues that were brought up. He can see his two tasks that are available to him for this application. Again, unlike having to open individual pieces of work or individual work items, he's able to look at all of the tasks that he is able to complete for this application in a single view. He can look at each of the tasks and see which ones are available, which ones he can process. He can look at the comments related to them and work on them. Since the licensing training was already completed, he can add that comment to that processing request as licensing reviewed it at the same time, and he saw that update in his status bar. He sees the licensing task is, in fact, complete as the status bar indicates, and we'll go ahead and complete this task. Can mark the task right here as complete, send it off, and now move on to the next piece of work without having to go back to an in-basket. He'll look at this task and see that a medical report is needed to complete this task. So at this point, he'll go into his documents section. He's going to look, contact the agent or the applicant who will send in that medical report. And once that's arrived, he has the ability to directly add that document into this application case. Dragging and dropping the document right to the screen provides him with the indexing information needed to go ahead and successfully add that document. So we have our medical report. It's in there. He simply has to pick the type of document, which, if you recall earlier, is tied to that condition that had been sent, waiting for a medical document or medical report to arrive. Adding that medical report will directly file that report in with this underwriting application. Behind the scenes, an automated task is running for document arrival. This is going to review the information contained within the document and determine, number one, where it should be filed, and number two, if there are any conditions being held for that may be tied to this one, when in fact it is. So we have that medical report has in fact arrived into this, and we can complete our second task. Once we've completed that second task, the processor can see that there's no more work available, so he'll go ahead and close this case for his work. The underwriter will now receive that held application because all of the conditions have been met. So when she opens this case up, she's going to see, as soon as it opens up, that in the status bar, we're no longer in a hold state, and has the visual indicator that both the licensing and now the training have been completed. A status bar provides that visual indication of everything, and she's then able to look at the entire view of the case, seeing all the tasks that have run, be able to look through any of the necessary data elements, either from this environment itself or from the system of record, and ensure that everything is in fact correct. She has all of that information, and because the medical information was required, she can look in the medical folder and actually see that medical report that was uploaded. So the processor provided that medical report, and it is immediately available for anyone who is working this. Since everything does appear to be in order, and all of the information appears to be there, the last check an underwriter can do is take a look at the timeline visualizer. This gives a complete view of the entire history of all the activities that have gone on in processing this application. We can see each and every one of the tasks that have run, and not only the tasks that have run, but all the steps that occurred within each of the individual tasks. So we can drill down, and she can check everything that's happened. We can see that the processing review was done. We can see all of the information that had been completed related to this case and verify that. So if there's any additional information that may be needed, everything is there. Every activity, every change to a property, every task, every document arriving, each and every one of those things are recorded completely in the history of this. And they can even look at and drill some of the details of the individual items that occurred that weren't task related, such as updates to properties in the case, documents being added. This gives that complete audit trail and history of everything that occurred. This allows the underwriter to make her final decision that everything is in fact in order with the complete necessary records to update this and actually be ready to issue the policy. That's going to go ahead and generate the policy offer and provide the applicant the ability to bind the policy and eventually issue it. So we're going to go ahead, launch that status update, which is actually going to then trigger the tasks related to binding the policy, which is a subset of the policy issuing container task. So the underwriter has completed her activities here, and it has moved on and back into the process. Where issuing can go ahead and open up that task and take a look at it. And this is the point where he would be able to work with the customer to deliver the proposed application, to have it bound, and then eventually issued.